Hi there, this is Frank Klezitz with Vyralmarketing, and I'd like to introduce you to Lou, who is a client of ours in a very educated market, Boston. Harvard graduates, MIT, very educated market, and decided to get involved with Vyral to start publishing educational videos. In fact, entertaining educational videos, which we'll talk about here shortly. Lou does a great job with that, to build trust and be relatable and to demonstrate his competence to arguably a skeptical audience, a very educated audience. And it's been working very well for him. He agreed to come on here and do an interview and share what's working for him. So maybe you can take some of the ideas that we talk about today and you can go execute them in your business. So Lou, what I'd like to do is I'd like to get your story today for the audience of kind of initially where you were before Vyralmarketing, before you started, you realized you had a problem and you needed to solve it and what that problem was, how you heard about us and some of your skepticism of working with us. And then you decided to hire us and start making videos. I want to hear some of the challenges and some of the growth you went through and some of the ideas of how to capture someone's attention and to get conversation started for buyers and sellers from your database. And then I'd like to learn what you've learned over the time working with us to ultimately achieve the result that you wanted and anyone else wanted watching this, is growing their business, right? I went from X to X deals. I'm going to ask you that today. So let's start there. If you could just sum up your experience with Vyral, how have you grown your business from the time that you started to where you are now? Let's start there and let's get the story of that journey and what you did. So where was your business before Vyral and where is your business now?
Yeah, I really appreciate you having me on and giving me the opportunity to talk about it because Vyral really has been great for my business. The way that I came to Vyral in the first place. So I had run a business for a long time that I would say it was centered on paying for leads, Realtor.com leads, Zillow leads, like we're paying a monthly fee and we're getting however many leads are coming from those campaigns. And where things started to shift was in 2023. So, interest rates started going up in 2022. And then 2023 was the first full year that we had where the rates were above, 5-6% starting in January. And that year, my Zillow campaign really tanked. It had been something that had been a huge driver of business. And then all of a sudden it became this anchor around my neck because I'm paying this monthly fee. I'm either not getting leads or I'm getting leads that are not converting. And that kind of said to me, I was like, if I don't figure out a way to change the way that I'm doing my business, I'm going to, even though I had been in the business for over 10 years at that point, I was like, I'm going to be out of a job. I'm going to have to find something else to do if I don't figure out how to change and adapt and evolve and find different lead sources. So my growth consultant at Century 21, we had just newly become a Century 21. She had suggested to me, she said, I've got some clients that work with Vyralmarketing and they're having really good results. You should check them out. And so I did. And I kind of took the leap. And certainly in the beginning, the videos that I was making were a lot more stilted and nervous, and I'm reading from a script, and my family's making fun of me about the videos, and but I just kept going at it because I knew that Vyral had a lot of clients who were having success using the model of creating the videos, database marketing, multi-touch point plan. And I just trusted the process. And over time, my videos got better and better. And this year, I'm having one of my best years ever. I'm on a fantastic pace at the halfway point. I'm on a pace to double what I did last year and the year before. And I think it owes a lot to this kind of, in a way, it's like a passive marketing because I'm recording the videos, but everything else is really being done for me. And that was such a huge thing. It was one of the things that I liked so much about when we were doing Zillow and Realtor campaigns was We were just paying money and then leads were coming in. And it wasn't like, uh, like most real estate people, I want to be out there working with clients. I want to be helping people buy and sell houses. There are a lot of other important things that need to get done to allow for agents to go and help clients buy and sell houses. And in fact, lead generation is one of the most important things that we do. As if you want to think of us as salespeople or consultants or whatever, you can offer the best service in the world, but if you don't have any clients to give that service to, it's not much good to anybody. But I trusted the process and worked on making more videos and making better videos. And one of the things that I've learned going through this process is just some basic rules of making videos in the modern day, leaning a little bit more towards entertainment, that it can't just be straight education, that, a video where you're just teaching somebody about a topic, that by itself, I mean, it's not bad, but if you can't get people to watch past the 3 to 5 second mark, if you don't have some sort of interesting hook in the beginning of the video, then they may not stick around to learn about and appreciate the educational part that you're going to deliver after that. And we are noticing our views going up as we try to make better videos. But it's just been it's been a great experience. I have inadvertently had some agents come and join our team as a result of the viral campaign, and we're not running a recruitment campaign. We're just running make educational videos for our client base. But there are agents in my markets that are seeing the videos that we're putting out and are growing more interested in our brokerage as a result of that as well. So it's really, in a number of different ways, it's created leverage so that I don't have to think about, this very important part of the business of creating video content to put out. I've got accountability where I've got to meet with somebody, once or twice a month to make sure that work actually gets done. So it's not just me yelling at myself like, oh, I know I should be doing this and I'm not doing it. I've got a meeting on Tuesday and I have to show up and record this video. And if I don't do that, I'm not just letting myself down. I'm letting somebody else down and inconveniencing them. So it's leverage, it's accountability, it's a framework to do something that is very important that all of us are supposed to be doing to educate our client bases. And it's just, in a number of different ways, it's been phenomenal for our business.
Thank you, Lou. Let's go back through that story of the very beginning. Online leads, total strangers coming from a third party, someone else's brand that you would call, introduce yourself. And that was your model. And it started to wean. And there's definitely a state of panic there emotionally. I don't want to discount that. And I'm sure there's lots of agents in the audience that can relate to the fear of that when someone else is feeding you from leads of your entire lifestyle and income, and then it just kind of goes, you don't have control over it. Then you realized, okay, I need to kind of shift my focus toward my existing database. My first question, I'd like to go explore that a little bit deeper with you. This is a very common shift. What were you doing to stay in touch with your database, meaning your past clients, your centers of influence, your lead nurtures, before Vyral? What was your plan to work that database before us? Or was there one?
So there was a plan. My goal and what I'd always been taught is that you want to try to reach out to your database, pick up the phone and call your most important clients 3 or 4 times a year, like once a quarter would be ideal. And I tried to do that for a long time, and sometimes I was more successful and sometimes I was less successful. But what I realized over time is that while that's great to pick up the phone and call them and have a conversation, and it can, help to keep you connected in a way, it's not with very few exceptions, that phone call is not necessarily providing value to the client who is answering the phone. Maybe it's nice to connect. Maybe it's nice to have a conversation. There's certainly clients that I have that were friendlier than with other clients, and catch up and see how their family's doing. But it's not on a regular basis. I'm not providing them information that might be useful to them. And it's not necessarily demonstrating my own value within this sphere. Anybody can pick up a phone and call somebody and say, "Hey, how you doing? How's it going this week?" But that doesn't necessarily show them like, I'm in touch with information that is relevant. I know what's going on in these different areas. I know what's going on in the industry. Like all of that is kind of missing. And I had picked at social here and there, understanding that it was something that I was supposed to be doing, but not really having like a clear strategy to do it. And oftentimes I just wasn't doing it because I would get busy with other stuff and I didn't make it a priority. So it really has changed the way that I interact with my database. And in some ways, it creates more of an environment for them to come to me because I'm staying top of mind now. I'm there. For a lot of them, it doesn't necessarily make a difference whether it's a phone call or they're getting an email or they're seeing a video of me on social. It all kind of amounts to the same touch point for a lot of clients, and just giving them this understanding and reassurance that like, look, I don't need to chase you down all year. And not in an egotistical way, but just in an accommodating, considerate kind of way. Like, I don't want to bother you all the time. Like if 4 phone calls a year, you're like, oh, this is my agent, I don't necessarily want to talk to him. Like, I just want people to know I'm there. I'm ready to help you when you need help. And I think that's a lot more comfortable for a lot of people to not feel that pressure of, oh, I got to talk and maybe I don't want to talk. And so that's sort of how I see it now.
It sounds like you were going one-to-one calls, one-to-one calls, one-to-one calls. And with Viral, you jumped from going now to one-to-many in your communication. And you're seeing the benefits of publishing, writing, speaking, making videos in a one-to-many format. That was a big shift. And aligning that content to communicating with your existing database as opposed to just hopefully getting found online by strangers, right?
Yeah. They always teach you in sales that to do business, to build trust, you want people to know you, to like you, and to trust you. And that once you've cleared that hurdle, that generally you can do business with somebody. And when you've got like a cold lead that, and let's go back to the Zillow example. So all they know is that, if I'm buying Zillow advertising, I'm a Zillow Premier agent. They don't know anything about me. They don't necessarily know anybody else I've ever worked with. I'm borrowing off of Zillow's credibility. They don't even necessarily understand why I am the one who is talking to them on the phone. That they clicked a button and somebody called them, and the relationship between me and Zillow is maybe kind of murky. So those are always, your cold internet leads are always going to be the most difficult to convert. I mean, I remember when we were doing Zillow, they were saying that like really high converting teams were converting like 6% or 8% of the leads that they were getting, that was like a really good conversion rate for those leads. Whereas, with the database, these are people that I've either worked with before, or at the very least, I've talked to them at some point in time. And that's how they ended up in the database in the first place. So they're already familiar with our company, where we are, what we do. Like I said, maybe we've had a conversation. And so now it becomes more of a nurture. It's like creating a relationship. which is really at the core of this business and at the core of most good business is creating a relationship with the person on the other side that, this is not we're not trying to have a single transaction and then never talk to them again. We want to be people's agents for life, and to let them know that we know what we're talking about. We do it as well as anybody else in our field, in the area, in the industry, and to really just foster that. And so it's like having a lot of conversations with people over and over again by creating the content and putting it out there in that way, and paying attention to what is relevant to the people who we are trying to speak to.
Well, that goes to your on the phone in production, listening to questions and listening to what people are asking, and you create the content custom with us around what the market wants, which is another point. We can go deeper into why this is working for you. Two things that stood out to me I'd like to ask you. This shift from going from online leads to making videos and publishing to your database. How do you know it's growing your business and it's in some way responsible for, on track to nearly doubling your production? But not just from an ROI standpoint of how you might know that, but second, how has it made doing business easier? Like the intangibles of it. Can you speak to how you know this is working and how is publishing content to your database making your job easier?
Yeah. It's one thing that I've always found about marketing that's challenging is to know what's working and what's not working. People ask like, well, if I buy a billboard, what is the ROI on the billboard? If I put out a radio ad, what is the ROI on the radio ad? And it can be hard to know unless you're surveying every client who comes in and saying like, why did you call? How did you hear about us? You can try to track it in that way, but it's more challenging. If you've got someone in your database and maybe you talked to them before and then they reach out a year or two later, we can make assumptions that they're seeing the content and now they're reaching out. But ultimately, for us, the most important thing is always going to be those bottom line numbers. Like how much production are we doing? How many homes are we selling? What is the price point of those homes? What is our GCI? Those are the things that matter most. And of course, I mean, our overhead costs are important as well. I mean, that's the other metric we're always tracking is like, how much money are we spending to create, this revenue? I would say I hear what a lot of people doing viral probably hear, which is I have a lot more conversations with people where they mention that they saw my content. Whether they're active clients that I'm working with or clients I haven't spoken to in a while and then they reach out. I frequently hear from people, yeah, I saw that video. I saw this, like, that was great. I really liked that. And it just speaks to, the reach that the content is getting, and people are remembering it. And even if they're not engaging with it, like, they're not liking my post on social media or they're not leaving a comment, it doesn't mean that they're not seeing it. And so I think as I'm watching the sales grow and the revenue grow, the only thing that's different now, I mean, the main thing that's different is we're not doing the Zillow leads and we are doing the viral campaign, and we're focusing a lot of our efforts on making sure that those videos are as good as they can be and that we're doing the follow-up work that we need to be doing and all of that. So I guess that's what I would say, how I noticed that it's working is because that major change, and we're still like, for the last few years, a lot of agents have complained about, well, the market stinks. The interest rates went up and the job is more difficult than it used to be. And even by the numbers, you can see the crunch. Like 2021, it was something like 6 million home sales nationwide. And then you get to 2023 and we were at like 4 million home sales nationwide. It's a significant transaction crunch, which has affected a lot of agents in a lot of markets. So for me to be putting up great numbers now in a market that I know is still challenging for a lot of agents, I think speaks to the value and the efficacy of the viral campaign. I feel like there was a second question
Hello?
in there, and I don't remember if I answered it or not.
No, you answered the ROI question. And it's actually exactly what we teach clients. And I'm glad you answered in the way that you did. Is when you have an appointment with someone or you have a conversation with someone, you generally ask them, you know, how did you hear about me? Or, did my videos affect your decision to talk to me? Or maybe why did you choose me over all the competitors? Maybe can you tell me the story of how you came to working with me versus everyone else? And through that information, your online marketing, your content marketing, the consumption of your content comes up. That's really the truthful way you're going to know. It's not like someone saw a retargeting ad or, someone in your database that came in from my lead source, got some postcard, and they're going to say, well, I don't know, I got this thing. This is what did it. It's that they spent time with you and they know you online and they got comfortable with you. The second follow-up question to that was, you were chasing and following up with strangers from third-party lead sources and having to reprove yourself probably each time you spoke to those individuals and they came in from a third-party lead, most likely. And now you're working your database and people are watching your videos. The follow-up question was, has this made is there less rejection? Like emotionally, is it easier to do business when you talk to people that have consumed your content? Has it made business more enjoyable? I know it's a leading question, but I really want to hear it from you if that's the case.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the reasons the attrition rate in this industry and in sales in general is so high is because most people cannot handle rejection, and certainly cannot handle it on the scale that we see doing this kind of work.
Constant.
Yeah, and it's real easy to take it personally. And I know a lot of people who do. They went with another agent, to sell their home, or you had a conversation with them and then they disappeared for a few months and you find out they're working with somebody else. I think you never like to lose business. I think the longer I do the job, the less it affects me when I don't get a piece of business. I always turn the microscope on myself, and I say, if there is a client where I spoke to them and then we didn't end up doing business together, I always want to know, is there something I could have done better? Is there something I could have done differently that would have changed that? Is there something I could have said, or some way I could have improved my presentation, or anything? And for us here, that translates to every piece of how we do business. We are constantly reevaluating everything that we do to see how can we do things better? How can we have better phone calls? How can we send better emails? How can we market a listing better? How can we be more responsive to our clients? How can we, provide better services at closing? Like, everything we are constantly looking at. And this, with the viral, was so helpful in that regard of like, how can we do marketing better? I think it would have to be improving the conversations that we're having now and the conversations that we're having with clients. And one of the main things that's so important is that, we're so busy. If an agent that's been doing this for a while, you just have so many different things that you're responsible for on a daily basis. And if you don't have good systems in place, then important tasks do get, they fall to the wayside. You forget to do stuff, and then it's a week later or a month later or whatever. And with the clients, sometimes you do have one conversation and then you get busy and maybe you were supposed to follow up and you didn't follow up, but the campaigns are doing the follow up for us. And sometimes it's just that, one of the big things in this business, and what makes it, I don't know if I'd say it makes it different from a lot of businesses, but it's very specific to real estate where the sales cycles tend to be so long, is that sometimes people just aren't ready to do business right now. You talk to somebody, I'm thinking about selling my house, but maybe they were just thinking about it. And maybe they're not going to be ready to do that
Mm-hmm.
for 6 months or a year or 2 years or whatever that looks like. I mean, I had a buyer client who the first time I talked to them, I think it was either 2020 or 2021. And then we didn't close on a house until 2024. Like we started looking and then they were out of the market for 3 years and then they were back in the market. And that's a slightly more extreme example. But if you talk to any agent who's been doing this for 5 or 10 years, they've got one or two of those stories of like, I mailed a guy a letter in 2015 and 7 years later, he gave me a call on the phone and said, hey, are you still in the business? You want to sell my house? And that's where, there's a lot of areas where there's a lot of value in these viral campaigns, but that is something that to me is so important that after that initial conversation, number one, I don't need to feel like I need to call that client once a week for the next 2 years. Like that at some point they're going to get annoyed and they're going to avoid my phone calls just because I'm going to become another annoying salesperson. And so it's a way that after that initial conversation, they get into the database, they're getting this follow up. Maybe every once in a while I'm reaching out with a personalized message, but it's allowing them to know I didn't forget about you. I'm still here. You take your time, however long you need. And I think it helps to change the dynamic of, we don't want to be viewed as salespeople. Maybe that's technically what we are, but I think most agents that are any good want to be viewed more as consultants than as salespeople because salespeople are annoying. Salespeople are people not to trust. Like a consultant is someone who's walking with you hand in hand to your goal. And that's certainly how we would like to position ourselves.
When you see the bill for viral marketing come through, I really want to get to the core of the problem we solve for you and why you keep paying us and why you're a customer. And then I like to end the interview with what are some of the best topics you've sent out that you think have gotten the best engagement and why? And then we'll be done. So thank you, Lou, for doing this.
Yeah.
So tell me, why do you stick around with us? What's the real value that we're bringing to you that you need that really helps you? I want to hear it from your perspective.
I touched on it a little before, but leverage and accountability are just tremendous. Gary Keller talked about this in The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, and obviously there's a lot of parts of that book that are a little outdated now, but the core of his ideas, having a certain number of touch points to your database every month and throughout the year. And one section that I always think about when he was giving advice on, okay, so you're a broker and you're opening up a real estate office and you're trying to grow your brokerage. And he talks about what is the first hire that you should do. And most brokers, they're looking around and they're like, well, I got to go hire agents. Like I got to fill up my office with agents and that's how I'm going to grow my business. And in that book, he says the very first hire that you should do is admin, that you need to bring in administrative staff because now they're going to help you to create systems to systematize what you're doing. And it's going to give you leverage because it's going to take some of these tasks off your plate that you're doing, which is going to free you up to go do more valuable tasks. Anybody who's running a business, and all of us, whether we're broker owners or real estate salespeople, operating in an office or part of a team, we're all 1099 independent contractors. We're all the owners of our own businesses. We have our own client lists. We are building up our own brands. And one of the things that you start to realize when you're running a business is that there are different types of tasks. And maybe the best way to think about it is, there is $10 an hour work and there is $1,000 an hour work. And when you start looking at your task list, it's very easy to get bogged down in the $10 an hour work. I think anybody who has started a business has fallen into that trap at some point of like, okay, I am doing a lot of stuff that I could like hire someone at minimum wage to do this work for me, and it would free me up to do other work because, the stuff that we do that has the most value in our businesses, the stuff that requires, years of experience and expertise and all that other stuff, that's the stuff you can't necessarily farm out. When a client is asking me advice on, post inspection, how do we negotiate?
High level.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. That's the high dollar tasks that you want to be doing the most of. But the low dollar tasks are not unimportant. The accounting work is not unimportant. And to bring this around to your question, social media is not unimportant. Marketing is not unimportant. Like, these are very important tasks. But for a lot of people doing this work, we either can spend a lot of time doing that stuff, or we just don't want to be doing it and it doesn't get done at all. And I found Vyral has been so valuable in, it is a group of skilled people who that's like, I mean, that's what you guys do is this marketing. And you're very good at it. And you've got a big team of people who, all know what they are doing to get these videos put together, get them sent out to the database in the best possible way. All of the, just all the marketing pieces that, I either wouldn't do as well myself or would spend too much time doing or whatever. It's very much done for me in a way that doesn't require a ton of time and input and stress from me. And that's like, that is so super valuable. And has freed me up to spend more time meeting with clients and advising agents and all of that other stuff. So when I see that monthly bill, which by the way is far less than what I was paying Zillow, like that's another thing that I want to touch on, is far less than I was paying for my monthly campaigns to Zillow. It's just a no-brainer for me that like, this is a part of my business, and God willing, you guys will be in business as long as I'm in business, and I won't ever have to, not have that piece there, that it can just be there with me until the day I hang up my real estate shoes, or I don't know, my real estate hat, or whatever, the gold jacket, I guess Century 21, I hang the gold jacket up and I'm done. So that was,
Lou, that's great. Wonderful answer.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Again, I feel like there was a second part to the question that I have now forgotten.
Last
question.
That's okay. Last question. 1 minute. What is the best content you send out that gets the most engagement? What advice do you have for the audience? They want to make videos? Give them direction on what to say.
So this actually, my Vyral consultant really helped me with this, because when I first started making videos, I was just making educational videos. Here's 3 tips to sell your house. Here's, tips for people in a bidding war. Like, here's tips for investors. And after a while, I noticed my view counts were going down because people got tired of just getting, it's like, you don't want to go to school every day. Like, you want it to be interesting. Sometimes you want to go on a field trip. Sometimes you want something different. And so one of the big changes my Vyral consultant told me was like, start making local content. Like, start, going to businesses, going to restaurants, like, review a restaurant, like talk to a local business person, start creating, mix that in with your other content. And that was huge for me, making that shift, because that like I get more engagement on those videos. People are much more interested in learning about a local ice cream parlor or a local sandwich shop. And it helped to kind of change my mindset on what I'm talking about as a whole. So now some of my educational videos, I'm talking about, changes in local laws, and that stuff gets a ton of engagement as well. This thing just got passed. Do you think that it's good or do you think that it's bad? And I'll have people reaching out and they're like, let me tell you what I think about this. And I've had some great conversations as a result of that. So just that shift in mindset of people do want the educational content. They do want to know how to prep their home for sale. They do want to know how to compete if they're a buyer, but the local stuff, stuff that is relevant to specifically to people living in those neighborhoods, not just your generalized content that could be for, anybody in the US, but really speaking to that audience. It was a important shift for me.
So Lou was paying for leads with Zillow online leads. They dried up. He talked to a coach and decided to go after his database. And he hired Vyralmarketing to help him, mainly because he knew he wanted to focus on $1,000 an hour work, highly paid work, talking to clients with high level judgment and outsource the rest. From good business advice from Gary Keller, hiring the admin assistant. His business is up. Going to be doubling it this year if things continue on track. And he likes Vyral because it's far less to pay than Zillow or the other lead providers. And he started by shooting more broad topics, kind of as a crawl, walk, run progression. And as he built confidence, he's now creating more custom and specific local videos that are on very niche topics that we put together for him. And he also likes keeping his content entertaining. And at the end of the day, it's leading to more conversations with people that know, like, and trust him to hire you to represent them in a deal. Does that sum it up today, Lou?
That sums it up as well as AI could have summed it up.
We used human intelligence today. Oh my goodness. We should start selling human intelligence.
Wouldn't
See if
that be
anybody wants
something?
that. Yeah. Yeah, I just did the AI summary myself. Lou, thank you for being a customer. Thank you for the interview.
Thank you for having me.
I much appreciate it. Thank you.